Great, super. Then also, as we did in the past, it would be helpful to add the country to your name so that our facilitators can see where you're located. And I can see most of you have already the country added. A few where this is not yet the case, then please do so. And then also, if at all possible, and your bandwidth allows, please switch on your camera so that we can see who's here on the call. And I can see Pablo here. Pablo, thanks for joining short notice, supporting the Spanish speaking group. So, as I said before, Carmen is not available. And thanks, Pablo, really for jumping in very short notice. So, this is much appreciated.
No worries. Always happy to help.
Thank you. So that's really it from me as a starting point. I would like to ask you, are there any questions on the online material that you accessed before today's meeting? And I'll just go into, okay, there's Zinmar saying, okay, internet is poor. Any questions on the material from anybody? I cannot see all of you at the same time, so I need to switch between two screens, but it seems there's no questions. Then I would really like to pass over to Tracy, who, as you have seen on the module page, was really leading on this module and putting the content together on strategy and business planning. And Tracy, it would be great to hear your thoughts on yeah, on this topic. And whilst you're speaking, I will bring up the Padlet and then we can talk about this further. Thank you.
Thanks, Birgit. And it's good to see everybody and see some familiar names, reconnecting with my global physiotherapy group. So as Birgit says, whilst at World Physiotherapy, I led a lot of the work on strategic planning, and also now, since leaving in 2023, I work with associations internationally and European as well as national, and currently have about 4 different clients I'm working on strategic planning. So it's very much my world now. But I wonder if you could just give me a show of hands before I give you a few pointers. Who gets excited by strategic planning? Does anybody put their hand up? Oh, 2, 3, 4. Yes, there are some hands going up. I have to say, whenever I mention strategic planning, some people just feel it's an exercise you go through because you feel you should, without the clarity of knowing why you need to do it. It can be seen as a paper-based exercise, and people used to refer to them as dusty documents that you feel you need to have, but they have now become really essential for the success of organizations. And I think it's really important for those of you that are leading the organizations through your executive committees and boards to know that alongside your responsibilities for governance and finance, as well as the operations of the organization, your other key responsibility is setting the strategic direction for the organization. And part of that is also your role as custodians for a period of time and how you use the resources of the organization wisely and for good effect. And that's whether you have financial resources, whether you're heavily reliant as an organization on volunteer time, or if you have staff and any combination of that. But strategic planning is also about how you make choices. It shouldn't just be a one-off exercise and then a list of action plans created. It needs to include your direction, your priorities, and the values that underpin the way in which you make decisions for your organization. They can be really important tools for a changing world. And that's the other thing about strategic planning. Don't always think it's a 5-year plan and that's your roadmap for the next 5 years. Anybody who did strategic planning just before COVID probably tore it up because the world suddenly changed and you had to do things differently. So the approach to strategic planning now is to be much more agile, less prescriptive, but have the parameters to help guide you and your organization. The other thing I would say that's really important for success is involve people. It's really important from the beginning to have a team-based approach, to think about who needs to be involved, who are important stakeholders, and how you're going to engage with them in the development of it or in consultation as you progress. And that can sometimes come in earlier stages, but it can also come once you've got ideas you want to stress test and see how they land. So Birgit, I think those are some really important takeaways at the beginning. And it was great to see the hands go up in terms of excitement, because this gives you a chance to really set the direction for your organization.
Super, thank you for these introductory words, Tracy. So for all of you, you will see that I have put a link in the chat to a tool called Padlet. Some of you might be familiar with this tool, for others it might be new. So if you could open that link, then you can see that there are several sections there with a few questions, and they mirror what will be discussed in the small groups. So before we go into the small group breakouts, as we know, with a bigger group and more breakout rooms, I was thinking perhaps this could be a good way for the facilitator in each group. So this would be Beth, Jane, Pablo, Tracy, and myself. To really keep an eye also on the Padlet, because in your breakout you can also add your thoughts to this Padlet. And when we come back to the plenum, perhaps this would be our go-to document where you as the facilitators can really orient yourself, and perhaps then add also points that were coming up in your small group discussion to summarize, that we can all see it in one document when coming back to the plenum. Has got anybody problems with the Padlet accessing this? Please just put something in the chat and we can repost. Just let us know if anybody has problems, because we really would want to be inclusive and everybody being able to participate in this exercise. Then for the first small group, we have 15 minutes allocated.
Should I just talk about that task
yes,
around
yes,
purpose?
please go ahead.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank
go
you.
ahead.
So probably in strategic planning, things like visions and mission statements are quite familiar. But there is now a growing body of evidence that actually says the clearer you can be around your organizational purpose, the better. And that's why many strategic plans now have a clear purpose statement. And you'll see one in World Physiotherapy's current strategic plan. And the purpose is why your organization exists. It's not the historical why, it's what you're here to do. What's your purpose? What's your North Star? And for many of you, it'll probably be very, very similar, because it's the basis of why professional associations get established. But in a lot of corporate worlds and other associations, it's trying to bring it down to something quite simple, because if anybody asks you, you could probably talk for a long time in terms of why your organization exists. But this is part of your elevator pitch. If you ever are talking to somebody to explain your organization, or talking to potential funders or sponsors, if you've got a clear statement of why your organization exists and who you are, that can be really powerful. So if you can get this actually under 12 words, that's one of the recommendations. But I always say start with even getting under 40 and you've probably made progress. And then increasingly, and I will be really honest and open about this, your friendly AI tool can help you to get much more succinct and focused if you prompt it correctly. So it's not just plug something in and get something out, but you haven't got often communication agencies or additional people you can go to help craft words. But this is where I would say, since the last 3-4 years, increasingly AI is coming in and can help you with this. So have a focus on your purpose in the discussions. Talk about some of the challenges, because you've probably got some common solutions.
Great, super. Thank you, Tracy. So here's my question for Gokul. Are we ready to go out into the small groups?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so then let's go out 15 minutes. Please use the Padlet to capture your thoughts and your purposes, and then we'll see each other in 15 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back all. I can see that our Padlet is growing and people have put their purpose statements in there. I can also see, so we had some conversations about people having where they had to really use statements between 12 and 40 words, as you said, Tracy. And one example that was given was for journalists, and when you have the media where you really need to be super succinct. I don't know, Tracy, do you want to, when looking at the statements that are in there, and use this as a kind of reflection on what has been said?
Yeah, I think probably if I just share a few reflections from our group. Purpose, if you see it in isolation from the rest of your strategic plan, you can spend so long trying to get the words right. And also someone asked, how do you get agreement across your whole board? And what I said is, with your strategic plan, it's how it comes together as a whole. Your purpose, your vision, your mission, and your values in particular together make sense. But if your purpose can stand alone, that's a really good signpost. As you say, journalism is a really good point. I actually think if you were to take virtually all of the member organizations of World Physiotherapy, there wouldn't be that much difference between them all, because everybody is around gathering the community in the profession about advancing standards, excellence, whatever you want to call it, about doing the best for patients. There's a lot of commonality because we are of the same profession and a professional community advancing it. But it's got to resonate with you, and it's got to resonate with your members as well. So I think if I look across these, lots of them are a really good length. What they sometimes veer towards is the mission statement, what you're actually going to do. So things like you're going to provide education, you're going to advocate, those sorts of things are often in the mission, because the mission statement is what you do, whereas your purpose is coming back to your why. And it's only as you work through each of those component parts can you start to tease it out. The other thing I would say, where you're struggling because something is really long, I was advocating in my group the use of AI. And being really honest that I use it in my consultancy as well. But you have to be really clear about the prompts that you provide, because it's almost like using it as a critical friend or a communications consultant. Help me craft this into a short statement that's only these many words. These are the critical ingredients, and it has to sit with purpose, vision, mission, and values all aligned. So I think, Birgit, looking at some of these and some of our discussions, hopefully those are useful tips and observations.
Thank you, Tracy. I have a question for you. So I just want to read out one, and you said there's a lot of similarities because the member organizations mostly have similar purposes. Some are also regulators where there's some other elements that are included. Just one that from the colleague from Myanmar PT Association to enhance quality and professionalism of physiotherapists in Myanmar. And then there was a statement which is very short, very succinct, and I would like to have your views on that. The Australian Physiotherapy Association, it says here, we build capability, we build careers, we build credibility. So what do you think about a purpose like this? This is very catchy.
Yeah.
So would be interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. So first thing is there is no right or wrong, and there is no perfection. So I think it depends what you want it to achieve, and as I said, how you use it alongside something else. Take the Australian one, for example. It doesn't actually mention the profession, but you're probably not going to use it without saying that that's what APA says or who APA is. And I guess I'm looking at Catherine on the screen around that. I think you need to be a very bold, confident organization who already has a certain level of gravitas and connections in your country and within your allied stakeholders to have something that's punchy, let's call it that. I'm not sure that would work in all countries where they are trying to build the profile of the profession. They probably need something that is more open around who they are, who they represent, and why they exist. So as I say, I think it all depends on the maturity of the organization, but also the context in which you operate. And if getting short, you lose something about what you're trying to achieve, just use a few more words. Don't get hung up on trying to go for something really short. So I think that would be my observation. Catherine may wish to comment from Australian context, given that's the example that was pulled out.
Please go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah, happy to comment. And I said this within our breakout group, was that last year the Australian Physiotherapy Association was fortunate enough to be able to engage an external consultant to come in who worked with executive staff and the board of directors over a couple of days to help pull together our new strategic plan. And one of the most important things was defining what our identity was, and from that helped us to build the rest of the strategic plan, including our purpose. So under those three headings of capability, careers, and credibility, when you drill down from that, it includes all of the subcategories of evidence-based research and being able to prove that the work that we do clinically has really great outcomes and also can save money for our government, rather than patients needing to go on to expensive medication or have expensive surgery. So I did say to Jane that I'd be happy to share the link for that strategic plan with Birgit if she would like to email that around.
Yes.
But it was a really valuable experience to be able to do that with an external consultant. And I know that not everyone's going to be in a position to do that, but that's how we drilled down to just those 9 words.
Thank you, Catherine. And I think it's great also to have all these statements on the Padlet, and I will put the Padlet on the module page so that you can really then read through the individual statements and everything that is being collated and generated today.
Birgit, just
yes.
one last thing on that. I think the fact that Catherine said about sharing it, never reinvent the wheel. If you go looking and seeing what some other strategic plans are from other organizations, they can really help you think. And particularly if you look for ones that are similar organization, that's helpful, but don't be afraid to go and look for different organizations to help you think differently. But if you go and find ones that exist, or contact others and say, this is the work we're doing, people usually are really good amongst the profession in particular. So don't start from scratch, look what else is out there. And you'll also get a feel for what might fit your organization, because it isn't one size fits all.
Thank you. I think that's really a very helpful and useful tip for the participants here. And I see many thumbs going up here. So then looking into the second small group discussion that we're having, and you will find the same question also again on the Padlet. So I don't know, Tracy, do you want to introduce the question and
Yeah.
the task?
This is a very simplistic question for what can become quite difficult, but I would also flag when you're doing your strategic planning, don't dive straight into activities. Activities are where you can often feel comfortable. We need to do this, this, and this without being clear about why you need to do things. But this is now getting into some of that. It asks you around one thing to continue doing, and that's almost like it's the really precious thing that you know really makes a difference, creates member value, it's got potential to keep doing that. One thing to stop doing. Stopping is hard because everybody always adds more on the list and nothing falls off. So there is a phrase called strategic quitting, which means strategically you make a decision that something can be stopped. If stopping something feels scary and not right, you can hit pause. Or you can adjust something. So here I would say, think about something you could perhaps pause or stop. And the biggest thing is, do we think it still adds value to our members? Does it actually give us good return on investment? So there's a series of questions you could ask yourself. And then the other thing around something to start, as in something new, is think big, because sometimes you need to think big, and that big wild idea may not work long term, but it can help you to just challenge the way you think about what you're currently doing. So it's a little bit simplistic, but it just helps you to think about what you do in different ways.
Great, thank you, Tracy. When you said it's simplistic, we only have 1.5 hours
I know.
for this session. So I know we could do a full day or 2 days easily, diving into the topic in more depth. So again, my question for Gokul, are we ready to go out? We have 15 minutes scheduled for this one again. And please use the Padlet again so that when we come back to the plenum, we can pick up anything that has been recorded there.
Sure, I'll open the rooms now.
Super. Thank you, Gokul. So welcome back to the plenum here. I can see people have put in examples of KPIs in the on the Padlet. We had certainly very interesting discussions in our group. I don't know, are there any high-level insights that you would want to share from your groups? And I'm looking at Jane, Pablo, at the moment. Anything that you would want to point out?
Ours were, I suppose they were quite specific to so there's not really on a high level, but I suppose both myself and Catherine were just saying how interesting it is to hear from other countries and what they're doing, and the similarities and the differences. But ours were quite specific to the examples of the countries given.
Yes, thank you.
Birgit, yeah, I think something to highlight that was a common theme between a lot of ours. When we were talking about KPIs and specifically around the qualitative aspect of it, the challenges when it comes to membership surveys or gauging satisfaction and the value of membership, and trying to gather that information is very challenging with regards to engagement in those surveys. But then people then find that the people that are engaging are normally the ones that might not be happy with the organization, or they don't engage and then they bring it up later. And so if there's any advice that we have with regards to that on, how can you increase engagement? How can you try to get members to speak up when they have the opportunity. I think that would be really helpful because that was common from the big organizations like Norway and then also some of our smaller ones like Namibia as well.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Beth. Pablo, any high-level points from your group?
Okay, so first of all, I would like to highlight the role of Marcela and Marisa because we were only three in our room, so there was no way they can hide of speaking, and we have some quite a fruitful discussion. And I just, the KPIs from Chile are pretty well described here, but I would like just to focus on how a similar KPI could be faced into different ways. So if we talk about public positioning and advocacy, while Marcela was proposing to have as a measure of success at least 6 public statements on the regular statements throughout the year, Marisa was suggesting, in terms of being a key stakeholder with the Ministry of Health, to increase the number of facilities which has PT services available as a measure of success on how. So it was interesting to see how a similar approach can have 2 different specific KPIs.
Can I comment on that? So I think, Pablo, what you've got there is a clear example of key outputs being the policy statements and key outcomes being the change in service provision. And that's why I think it isn't just a key performance. And I often talk that under each pillar of activity and defined activities, you will have outputs, outcomes, as well as those sort of indicators. So that's why they're both relevant to the same topic area. So a really good example.
Thank you. Yes, I think we also had a similar discussion in our group. It was about the, let's say, download figures. So something that you can really count, but then what is the impact? What are people doing with the information, and the impact that it has on the individual user or the group that you are targeting this information, and having the end result that is hopefully coming out. But this is less tangible and less easy to describe. And Tracy, where we are coming towards the end of this session, I would like to give you an opportunity. Are there any points that you would want to pick up, or anything that you would like to share with the group?
Yeah, I think one of the key things is allow enough time for this process. Most strategic planning processes are around 3 to 6 months. It's not something you can do in a week. If you're working with groups of people, find different ways for people to interact. Things like the Padlet tools can be really good for people who like to think on their own and find it hard in big groups to contribute. And even when working with big groups, I still use these and allow people time to go back and have a look again. So build time into your process. And the other thing I did say to people is, it's not perfect. If you can live with it now and it feels good enough, that's fine. But as boards, you should be doing an annual health check on your strategic plan. It should be there each time you're trying to make a decision. You go back and say, well, what did we say? How are we making decisions? And if at that point you decide you want to tweak your purpose statement, your mission, or your key pillars, you can do it. Lots of organizations now have rolling strategic plans. It's not a plan that is set for the next 5 years. It needs to be adaptable and flexible. So if you suddenly feel something's not working, change it.
Super, thank you. So thanks a lot, Tracy, for being here for this discussion and really helping, guiding the ideas on how to approach strategic and business planning. Also, thank you to Jane and to Pablo and Beth as facilitators. Just before we're concluding, I wanted to let you know that the finance module is already available on the website. I will send, as always, a short follow-up email. And what I will also do, I will share the Padlet and the plan that Catherine has. I saw with one eye that there was something coming through, so I will pass this on and put it also on the module page. you may have noted that there are not yet any meetings in your diary from April onwards for the leadership program, because we still want to look at the timings with, clock changes forwards and backwards in the different parts of the world, to make sure that things are not getting worse for you. So we really need to do a check on our side, and then we will send out the meeting invitations. We will keep the alternating Mondays and Wednesdays, and try to be at the same time as we are now, so that your meeting times are not getting any worse than our colleagues in Australia and New Zealand at the moment have, or some in South America where it's very, very early. So thanks a lot to all of you for engaging in these discussions. I hope you found it fruitful, and see you soon for the next module on finance. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Guys, bye.
Goodbye.